All right, welcome to this edition of the database team meeting, starting from the top of the agenda. So there is an MR out there about decentralized ownership, and it discusses the database. It uses database as one example. And it's on pause right now. They're going to talk about it in engineering staff meeting. There was it's an interesting discussion. I would recommend reading the merge request. Ultimately, I think the intention will still remain the same. Database team doesn't own all of the merge requests. It's not possible, it's not scalable, it's not something we should own. That would be like the old days of throwing QA over the wall, right? Developers write their code and then somebody else tests it. So ownership of individual migrations still remains with teams, and I'm not sure what the further discussion of this MR will be. So just keep an eye on it, follow the conversation, see what happens. But the original intent of the MR should remain largely the same, especially where it affects the database team. So any questions on the first one? Nope. All right, it looks like the UX is done for audit events. Partitioning, so we can move forward on that. I don't know, I didn't look yesterday, obviously, because I was out. Has anybody picked up that issue so we can actually start moving things over?
I don't think so. Okay. I think we discussed our strategy, but no one has actually started working on it yet.
Okay. Giannis or Pat, do either of you have time this week to work on that?
I can probably, I mean, I'm working on the schema validation, but I think that's an ongoing issue. There's going to be a lot of MRs coming for that. So that, I mean, they're both a priority, but the partitioning is to wrap that up, I think is a priority that the schema validation maybe can, wait for a week or so until the partitioning is ready.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to slide it to you then. All right, Postgres Ai. So having weekly syncs with Nick. The first one was on Friday, and I've actually asked for a different date so that we can continue to support the no meetings Fridays as much as possible. So I suggested either Monday or Wednesday at about 8:30 Pacific time. So once we have a set schedule, I will invite everybody else to that as well. Giannis came to the first one. Our trial with Postgres AI ends in November, end of November. And I asked him, if we haven't come to an agreement yet, are you going to cut us off? And he said no. So we're still going through all the features we'd like to see, what functionality we'd like to see, what kind of pricing model we're going to have, and what kind of timeline that's going to take. So more to come there. Mostly it was brainstorming last Friday, and there were no major follow-up items from that. He was going to think about a few things, and the agenda is there if anybody wants to read it. But again, once we get a settled schedule, I will invite members of this team so they can join and give their ideas. And number 4 is just probably from the agenda, testing migrations with Postgres AI, and he's going to think about different ways we can do that. And if there needs to be an interim solution of actually having maintainers manually test that, which it is a solution. It may not be the greatest one, but it's something that we can talk about in the next meeting. So, any questions on Postgres AI? All right. Yeah, if anything comes up later, just add it to the doc and we can continue to talk about it with Nick more asynchronously. Let's see, database Aptx. I know Giannis had made some progress on it, creating the dashboard in Periscope last week, I think end of the week, or it was over the weekend actually, right? And then Josh asked about the target. Giannis, you want to verbalize your answer?
Yeah, so Joshua asked if we have a target of 99% there. So I was thinking that already in the Aptx we have the target, the 100 millisecond target and the tolerable 250 milliseconds. So in order to generate the Aptx, we do, we count how many queries are at below 100 milliseconds and how many are below 250 milliseconds, and then we average. So we already have the tolerable part in the Aptx. So from one point of view, 99% seems reasonable. On the other hand, I don't know, and I wanted to ask there, what are we doing, with those are self-hosted instances. So I don't know if that was GitLab.com. I would say, yeah, that's super reasonable. I'm not sure about how we would treat self-hosted instances from that respect. And I wanted to discuss with you in this call about this.
I'm not sure.
And we don't have enough data. So we have data only from 13 instances.
Yeah.
12 instances out of 13 are above 99%. There is one instance that is below 99%, for example. But I don't know how this will work. So one thing will be let's wait for 2-3 weeks and see the data.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how many outliers we have. So, for example, my example there is what happens. So, for example, somebody may set up in GitLab with 256 megabytes for Postgres. It will be slow. We know that. It won't be fast. Or so, yeah. I don't know.
That's interesting. Is there a way to know that the results you're getting back are under provision on memory? Like, can you tie those two things together?
We have the data from topology. So
Right.
the memory team already gathers that data.
Right.
But then there is the thing that I'm not sure if if the same instances will have both data. Most probably, if we have our data, there will also be data from nodes. So this is memory team uses a somehow different way to gather data. So they use what is called a node collector that goes out and gathers data about the node. I'm not sure if all the instances that are going to return data for the database, we are gathering that data from inside GitLab. So if an instance has Prometheus running, we will have a query updates. I'm not sure if the same instances will also have, a memory returned and disk, etc. And what else we gather from memory. That's something to check. And we need data to be able to. The moment I have data, we'll be able to answer all those questions.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was some kind of identifier in the import so we could tie the two together between what memory collects and what we collect. But based on an old import I have, oh, there is an identifier. Never mind. That looks like a self-incrementing identifier. So I don't think there is.
So
yeah,
we gather CPU, we gather memory, I think. I'm not sure if we gather memory, for example, I don't know, I will have to check. Yeah, that's it. If we have the memory for Postgres there as a separate counter.
Yep, we do.
Yeah, so maybe we could use that, or so we could refine this at a future point to use that as a threshold. For example, don't count any instances that are outliers. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but we will start with I think that starting with a simple metric like we have done is nice. I'm not 100% if 99% is the way to go, but yeah, we can do.
Okay.
We could think about it, and maybe it is 98%, or maybe we can keep it at 99% and then refine it using, throwing away outliers, because that's more proper.
Yeah, that's what we ended up doing on the memory team too. Once we actually got a good volume of data, then we started refining what we were measuring and what we were displaying on the dashboard. So we'll keep checking in on this one.
Okay, I will add a comment there. Okay, that maybe we could throw away outliers.
So database ERD has been requested a couple times in the last couple weeks. I add an example here. Something that Andreas and I talked about before we even had a database team. If there's like an extra step we can add into CI somewhere to just kick it out on a regular basis so that it's regularly available. Something to think about. I will create an issue for this, and it's not super urgent because we have a dated ERD out there that seemed to have made people happy. And if we make progress on the data dictionary as well, then I think that will cover all of the data team's needs or requests that I've heard so far. And that thread that I linked in there, they gave a couple examples. So one team used Lucid charts, and then another team mentioned a GitHub project that'll do it for free. So something we can look into for future us. Jose, you're up next.
Yes. Hello, Craig and team. So I'm sharing here the design doc and blueprint that I created for the explaining the logical replication, basically why or what are the limitations that we have with stream replication and when we could use logical. At the end of the day, well, initially we thought to use logical to enable checksums, but unfortunately the path is not so easy since we'll require a lot of time and adding a lot of load on the primary. So you can have a look on that more in detail. But what we find out, the best use case for using logical is for the following process. The goal would be for make a major upgrade version without downtime or with near zero downtime. Resuming the whole process, we will create a second cluster in Patroni with stream replication, break this replication during a low peak time during the weekend, for example, execute the upgrade on this new cluster, and later execute the logical just to sync this data during this delta of time from when we broke the logical, the streaming replication, until the upgrade. We tested the whole process in staging and works. The 2 points here that we would like to understand or looking for the limitations of logical in the environment are: 1, PG Bouncer, how many transactions we can hold on the pause, and for how long is the time that the PG Bouncer pause can keep for when we do this switch over from the application, when we wait for applying the logical lag that we're applying on the new master. And this is 1 point. And the second, exactly that process from the logical, when we look for the deltas or applying the changes, is reading the wall ahead logs and applying LSN per LSN. So this can be really slow. Then we need to see how much time will take to synchronize when we will execute this pause to execute the switchover. These are the main comments on the blueprint and the design. Please, I would like to have your opinion on that as well. If you have any questions, I would like to help. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jose. All right, if there's nothing else, we can jump into goals from last week and this week. So Jonas, you're up.
Yep, 3 MRs are in, 1 MR reverted. So that's an interesting one. Did not cause any incident. We caught it the moment we sent it to master. So we're not running tests with PG12 in the pipelines inside the MRs. So we run Postgres 12 tests after we send to master. So I had an update where we were checking the PG constraints table, and there is a column there for getting the constraint definition, which is there forever, as far as I know it, since Postgres 7. And this was removed in Postgres 12. So the update was working perfectly fine in my environment, was passing all pipelines in the MR. The moment we merged with master, the pipelines failed on master. And that's one thing that we are not running, so we could not catch it in the MR. I'm not sure if we want to also run pipeline tests for PG12 inside the MR. That's the one part. And the second part that we discovered during that process is that changes in lib GitLab database, that means in all our libraries for the database, which affect migrations, don't trigger the pipelines that test migrations. So if we make a change in the migration helper, so in this case, we made a change in the way we recognize check constraints, for example, and we change the existing helpers to also copy constraints. And that broke some migration tests. We also could not see it because those tests did not run on their MR pipelines. There is an issue that we are going to fix it. So we are going forward. We are going to kick off migration pipelines whenever we have any changes in the library in lib database under the normal lib or the enterprise edition lib. So that at least will help us catch that. This is not an incident. It's just merging something in master, and the moment it was merged, breaking the pipelines in master. So we will move this one step earlier so that we can see that in the MR.
Okay.
So this will take me a day back. So this is already fixed, and I have to resend this, fix this MR.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And so I did not have the time to move forward with the, what else did I wanted to do? With the partitioning, but I will, going forward, I will start with the partitioning, the events partitioning.
Okay. So sorry, what's the headline for the MR that you're working on this week to fix? Is it testing PG12 earlier in the pipeline?
Oh, no, it's not important. It's a redo the check constraints helpers. But it's just, I will resubmit it with using something that is compatible with Postgres 12 and 13. It's not important.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Andreas is not here. Pat, wrapping up docs from partitioning last week.
Yeah, the docs are done. They were merged in. The other thing that I had been working on really for last week was finishing up identifying all the schema differences between structure.sql and production, which is done. There's that spreadsheet now that lays that all out. So for this week, I guess there's a couple MRs that I started last week to start addressing some of the schema issues. So I want to continue pushing those through this week, but I guess the priority for this week now will be look at the swapping those partition tables so we can finish up audit events.
Okay. And maybe you think you'll have time for the finishing up the schema changes?
Yeah, the MRs are, at least one of the MRs is ready more or less. I just want to, we're going to do like a trial run of the migration and just do, because there's probably, I don't know, 50 columns maybe that need to be fixed. And we're just going to do a single migration first to make sure that the approach works in production. There's no issues. So at least do that, and then we can be pretty confident that it's going to work right.
Okay. All right, that's it for the agenda. Any other topics?
If I can talk on behalf of Andreas, most of the reindexing MRs are in. There is only one small MR, as far as I can see, that is pending. But the core MRs are in, have been already merged.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else we should cover for the week? Coming soon, there were some exercises I learned from the manager challenge that should be interesting. I've added them to our the database team issues. Probably do them later on this month. So, but manager challenging was interesting. I know they're going to post all the videos and materials out there, and they'll do a couple more rounds of it later on for other managers or maybe aspiring managers. So it's good training. Found it interesting. Learned some new things, and it was a refresher on a bunch of things that I've done before. So, but it's always good to have that.
Yeah,
All
if
right.
you can share the best of or things that you found interesting with us, it will be great.
Yeah, for sure. I will. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody.